campaigning activities officially started in Ecuador ahead of polls for local authorities and the popular consultation in February. In Bolivia, violent groups from the so-called Youth Union of Santa Cruz attacked the police station of the city once again. And the railroad workers in the United Kingdom began another strike, joining to a wave of walkouts over working conditions and wages. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Tuesday in Ecuador, the electoral campaign for local elections and public consultations scheduled for February the 5th has officially started. Candidates for prefects, mayors, urban and rural councillors, together with members of rural parish boards, will be able to disseminate their work plans and proposals until February the 2nd, when this process will end. In addition, 7 members of the Citizen Participation and Social Control Council will be chosen at the polls. Over 13 million voters will be called to the polls in the country next month to elect 23 prefects, 23 vice prefects, 221 mayors, 864 urban councillors, 443 rural councillors, and 4,109 principal members of the parish councils. On Monday night in Bolivia, violent groups from the so-called Youth Union of Santa Cruz, related to the governor of the department of Santa Cruz, Fernando Camacho, attacked the police station of the city once again. TeleSUR correspondent in Bolivia, Freddy Morales, indicated that during the attack on the police headquarters at around 9 p.m. local time, the aggressors assaulted a group of people who were participating in vigils in favor of Governor Camacho. The departmental deputy commander of the police, Colonel Edson Claure, indicated that police officers responded using tear gas to disperse the attackers and to avoid the seizure and burning of the public building. Violent protests in Santa Cruz intensified after the arrest of Camacho, leaving various national and regional public institutions burned or destroyed. In Brazil, the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly held a meeting with authorities of the Kingdom of the United Arab Emirates regarding the strategic cooperation between both nations. The meeting between the head of the Venezuelan Parliament, Jorge Rodriguez, and the Minister of State for International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates, Reem bint Ibrahim al-Hashimi, took place on Monday in Brasilia, where they discussed issues of mutual interest with respect to cooperation in energy matters through the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries, OPEP, and non-OPEP, an organization in which both nations work to maintain the balance in the production of crude oil. In this sense, authorities discussed the promotion of oil, gas, and petrochemical activity in both countries, in addition to promoting investment in various strategic sectors. And the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Min reaffirmed at a press briefing in Beijing on Tuesday that the Asian giant will promote comprehensive strategic partnership with Brazil to a higher level.
Lula da Silva was inaugurated as President of the Federative Republic of Brazil on January 1st, local time. Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message. In his message, President Xi pointed out that China and Brazil are major developing countries with global influence and important emerging markets. The two countries are comprehensive strategic partners, sharing extensive common interests and shouldering common development responsibilities. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties 48 years ago, bilateral relations have witnessed sustained and in-depth development thanks to joint efforts of both sides, and have grown increasingly mature and dynamic, President Xi said, adding that the China-Brazil relationship has become a model of relations between major developing countries with rich connotations and broad prospects.
In El Salvador, more than 200 people died in traffic accidents in 2022. According to Civil Protection Chief Luis Amaya, from November 17th to December 31st, 2022, 203 people died in the 2,301 traffic accidents reported, which also caused injuries to 1,319 people. The Ministry of Public Works said that compared to 2021, there has been a 7.1% drop in traffic accidents, which means 1,333 fewer accidents. The Argentine government reiterated on Tuesday, its sovereignty claim over the Malvinas Islands, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands, and the surrounding maritime areas on the 190th anniversary of the British occupation of those territories. Through a message published on social media, the Casa Rosada and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirmed the rights of this nation and its unrenounceable objective of recovering the areas usurped by the United Kingdom. On January 3rd, 1833, the European country illegally occupied the Malvinas, expelling the legitimate Argentine authorities and the population established there and took British subjects. Recently, President Alberto Fernandez pointed out that the British presence in those territories is an attack against Argentina's capacity for self-determination, its integrity, and full disposition over its natural resources. On Monday, the United States Capitol Police Chief warned of possible future attacks on the Congress as the second anniversary of the deadly Capitol Hill insurrection approaches. Capitol Police Chief Tom Menger said in an online statement that the current threat climate, particularly against elected officials, require continued and heightened vigilance. He also said that with the polarized state of the nation, an attack like the one endured on January 6, 2021, could be attempted again. On that date, thousands of individuals, mostly former President Donald Trump's supporters, stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. and disrupted a joint session of Congress in the process of affirming the 2020 presidential election results. So far, more than 900 people have been charged with crimes over the Capitol riot. On Tuesday, Brazilian people joined Pelé's funeral procession, which departed from the Vila Belmiro Stadium and slowly made its way through the streets of the city of Santos. Waving huge black and white flags with messages in honor of Edson Arantes do Nascimento, Pelé, Brazilians sang the anthem "1,000 Goals, Only Pelé" to the sound of drums, kettle drums, and firecrackers. The coffin of the legendary Brazilian football player was transported in a fire truck with policemen dressed in gala on top. The procession will go along the seafront in Santos to the house of Pelé's mother, Celeste Arantes, who has just turned 100 years old. The 24-hour wake for the Brazilian star brought together some 230,000 fans who came to pay tribute to him. Early on Tuesday, the ceremony was attended by Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the first regular shipment of liquefied natural gas from the United States arrived in Germany as part of a wide-reaching effort to help the country replace energy supplies it's previously received from Russia. The tanker vessel, Maria Energy, arrived at the North Sea port of Wilhelmshaven. The shipment will be converted back into gas at a special floating terminal that was inaugurated last month by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Germany has rushed to find a replacement for Russian gas supplies following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict. The facility in Wilhelmshaven is one of the several terminals being put in place to help avert an energy supply shortage. Germany has also temporarily reactivated old oil and coal-fired power stations, as well as extended the life of its last 3 nuclear power plants until mid-April. And the legal actions against the late Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI will not stop despite his death. The charge is his responsibility in the alleged cover-up of sexual abuse while he served as Archbishop in Munich and Freising in Germany between 1977 and 1982. According to the spokesperson of the Court of Traunstein in Bavaria, Andrea Titz, the process will continue against any of her that the plaintiff may have, something that has not yet been established, published the agency ANSA. Titz explained that although the death of one of the parties results in an interruption, in the present case it does not apply because the deceased was represented by a team of lawyers who exercised his defense. The trial seeks to determine whether the man who would later become Pope was guilty of covering up the sexual abuse, since the abusing priest was transferred to his diocese for therapy. The condemned priest, the archdiocese, and Ratzinger's successor as Archbishop of Munich and Freising, Cardinal Friedrich Wetter, are also targeted. And the railroad workers in the United Kingdom began another strike this Tuesday to demand better salaries, following the wave of strikes in different sectors during the last weeks. Members of the British Rail, Maritime and Transport Union specified that it is a 48-hour strike aimed at having an impact and facing the sharp increase in the cost of living. In November, inflation in the country stood at 10.7%. In this context, the railroad sector is also declared that they will hold another demonstration on January the 6th and 7th, demanding a 7% salary increase. On Tuesday, European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Joseph Borrell said the United States Inflation Reduction Act does not respect World Trade Organization rules and penalizes European producers in bilateral trade relations. Borrell stated that the U.S. administration has taken important steps to accelerate the energy transition with the Inflation Reduction Act, but said this legislation is based on a very different philosophy from the one favored by the European bloc. The EU High Representative emphasized the regional union does not want and cannot embark in a competitive fight based on public subsidies because it will harm the world economy. The IRA was signed by the U.S. President Joe Biden in August 2022. As from January the 1st, 2023, it offers U.S. citizens tax credits for buying electric vehicles assembled in the country. And the European Union on Tuesday offered China help to deal with its COVID-19 emergency, including the donation of vaccines.
What I can tell you is that in view of the COVID situation in China, Commissioner Kyriakides has reached out to her Chinese counterparts to offer the EU's solidarity and support, and this includes public health expertise as well as through variant-adapted EU vaccine donations.
Now we move on to other topics. On Tuesday, the United States National Weather Service announced that the country will face a new wave of winter storms during the first week of 2023 that will possibly bring heavy snowfalls and tornadoes. The entity reported that 16 states are under winter warnings, while the storm is forecast to move from the so-called Four Corners Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, to the Central Plains such as Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska. Meanwhile, specialized sources confirmed that by Wednesday, much of the East Coast will be under a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Local media confirmed that more than 19 million people are at risk due to this atmospheric phenomena. An example of this was the strong winter storm Elliott that left 65 fatalities. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flew to China on Tuesday for a three-day state visit, stating that he looks forward to his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping as they work to boost bilateral ties. Marcos Jr. told officials and diplomats, including the Chinese ambassador, that his visit will open a new chapter in Philippines' comprehensive strategic cooperation with China. Alluding to the two countries' territorial dispute in the South China Sea, he said he looks forward to discussing bilateral and regional political and security issues. Marcos said he will seek further clarification when he visits Beijing. Accompanied by a big business delegation, Marcos said they will seek cooperation in various areas, including agriculture, energy, infrastructure, trade and investments, and people-to-people exchanges. He said they expect to sign more than 10 key bilateral agreements during the visit. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Sayah reacted on Tuesday to ultra-nationalist Israeli cabinet minister's visit to a flashpoint in Jerusalem Holy Site. It is the first visit by Israel National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir since he took office in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's new ultra-right-wing government last week. The visit, which is considered a provocation by the Palestinians, drew fierce condemnation from across the Muslim world. Ben-Gvir entered the Jerusalem site known to Jews as the Temple Mount and to Muslims as the Noble Sanctuary. The Palestinian Prime Minister called it a grave challenge to the emotions of the Palestinian people and a violation of all norms, values, agreements, international laws, and Israel's commitments. On Tuesday in Palestine, hundreds of mourners in the occupied West Bank held a funeral for a 15-year-old boy who was killed by Israeli army fire near the city of Bethlehem. The Palestinian Health Ministry said that Adam Ayad died of a gunshot wound to the chest during an attack by the border police of the Israeli occupation army against Palestinians. Violence continues in the West Bank after 2022 saw the area experience its deadliest year since 2006, with 170 Palestinians killed. This victim is the third Palestinian murder by the Israeli occupation army since the beginning of the year 2023. On Monday, Burkina Faso reported the finding of 28 bodies over the weekend in the northern province of Mouna. According to a government statement, on December 30th and 31st, there was an incident in Nona province, and an investigation is underway. Attacks targeting security forces and civilians have increased in the recent months, especially in northern and eastern regions bordering Mali and Niger, which are battling army groups. A civil society group blamed the killings on armed civilians, claiming to be members of a government-backed volunteer force fighting jihadists. The military seized power in Burkina Faso last January, promising an end to attacks, but the silence or the violence still rages. Now we address other topics. On Tuesday, China condemned fresh COVID-19 test requirements by around a dozen countries on passengers traveling from its territory, warning it could take countermeasures in response. The United States, Canada, France, and Japan are among several countries that now require travelers from China to show a negative COVID test before arrival, as the country faces a surge in the number of cases. According to the Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Nin, some countries have taken entry restrictions targeting only Chinese travelers. He also said that this lacks scientific basis and that some practices are unacceptable, warning China could take countermeasures based on the principle of reciprocity. China recorded only 22 COVID deaths since December, after dramatically narrowing the criteria for classifying such fatalities. Meanwhile, Mao Nin also said that China firmly opposed the attempts to manipulate epidemic prevention and control measures to achieve political goals in response to the entry sanctions or restrictions for passengers arriving from China imposed by some countries.
We appreciate that many countries responded warmly to interim measures for the international exchange of Chinese and foreigners issued by China. We will continue to optimize and adjust the prevention and control measures in light of the epidemic situation and provide better conditions for the safe, healthy, and orderly travels of Chinese and foreign personnel, so as to better guarantee international exchanges and cooperation. We are willing to strengthen communication and work together with the international community to overwhelm the pandemic. At the same time, we believe that some countries' entry restrictions targeting only China lack scientific basis, and some excessive measures are unacceptable. We firmly oppose the attempts to manipulate epidemic prevention and control measures to achieve political goals, and will take corresponding measures based on the principle of reciprocity with regard to different cases.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.